Well, welcome everybody to the mountain and welcome to all the folks online. This is one of our first attempts to do what a dream that we've had for a long time is the Center for Social Discourse and for Transformation. And we have today Sister Jean Klimczak, who will be talking about Peaceprints, the life of her sister, Sister Karen, and also the journey to nonviolence, or the journey of transformation that leads to nonviolence. So it's a conversion for each of us. It's a sense of what is ours to do, as St. Francis would have asked. And so we welcome you and look forward to seeing what today is going to be. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for wanting to be part of becoming peacemakers, and also finding peace within your own heart. So.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to be with all of you here, and all those who are joining us through the whole internet connections. Karen would love this because she never wanted to be confined, so she's totally free. And the one thing that she loved was symbols, always using symbols, so that as we experience this afternoon, there's going to be a lot of graphics, a lot of symbols. And we have so many of the symbols. I leave Peaceprints, and so that the word Peaceprints. And it was December before Karen died. She died in April. But the December prior to that, she wanted to create some type of symbol. She said, all through our lives we touch things and we leave fingerprints. And so she was trying to think of, what is some way that we would be able to leave symbols of peace. So then she came up with the whole idea of peaceprints. So that just as we have the fingerprints, but that we leave peaceprints throughout our lives and all of our interactions. And in the scripture this morning, we're talking about love. And that's what Karen was all about. Her love of God and her love of others. And we will see that throughout some of the sharing today, where we are going to see some symbols, so that these are things that were found in her diary. And this is a symbol that she used when she transferred to the Sisters of St. Joseph, when she made her commitment. And so you see this live person, united with Christ in reaching, risking, responding to the spirit of the more. And so that she used those symbols. Now, in the presentation today, I am going to be sharing with you the first part of the presentation was produced by Joan Albarella. Joan Albarella did not know Karen personally. However, it was after Karen had passed. There's the Interfaith Peace Group from Grand Island wanted to write a book about nonviolence. And so that they had approached the Sister Karen Center for Nonviolence to see if that was possible. And they called for a group of people to come together. And it was at that group where Joan Albarella was part of it, and she had proposed a biography of Karen. And so that, however, with the book, what it turned out to be, the book, I Leave Peaceprints, Sister Karen's Paths to Nonviolence, has been written in two parts. The first part is a biography of Karen written by Joan Albarella, and in the form of Bounce the Clown. Karen loved to use acronyms, so that she wrote the biography of Karen as Bounce the Clown, and that's the first part of the book. The second part of the book, I Leave Peaceprints, are interviews with the people who knew Karen. And the book also has an index, and in the first part of the book was also included a DVD. The Diocese of Buffalo had produced the DVD Apostle of Peace within the first year of Karen's passing. And the DVD is available through online, and was made by Channel 7 in 3 parts, so that it was played on television so that it would fit into a half-hour segment, so that they could have commercials in between. And then the second part of the DVD is the actual Mass. The DVD won a platinum prize, so that was in New York State for the production of movies. So that is the book, I Leave Peaceprints. But today, what we are going to first concentrate on is the biography of Karen as this little light of mine, the story of Karen Klimczak, Sister Karen Klimczak, SSJ. When Joan had talked to me, it was a few months later after we kind of started with the book I Leave Peaceprints, and she was talking about, possibly writing a play. So that I had shared with Joan Karen's diaries. This entire play is the words are directly Karen's diaries. So that as we see, these are Karen's words. And as I'm listening to them, because the play was done at the 10th anniversary, but what Joan has done has put them in a PowerPoint presentation. And when you hear Joan speaking Karen's words, if I didn't know any better, I would think that Karen was with us. So that when you are going to be listening to the audio part of the PowerPoint, it is Joan, but Joan with Karen's words from her diary. And throughout the PowerPoint presentations, you are going to see some of the, in a way, some of the pictures that she found in the diaries. So that's what this first presentation is about. And then the second part, I will just continue with that. But before we begin the presentation, I would like to begin with a prayer. This prayer was written by students from Nativity of Mary in Clarence, and it was written by the students just a couple of weeks after Karen had died. And this prayer intercession I'd like to dedicate to Ryan. And if you could just say something about Ryan, because I know Ryan's parents, family is watching this at this time.
Ryan was a student at Bonus, graduated in 23, and was very active here at the mountain. Just a very dear soul. And Ryan did, right after college, began a year of service in Washington, D.C., working with Cap Corps. And so Ryan was proverbially in the wrong place at the wrong time with his friends in a robbery attempt. And Ryan was killed back then. And just for such a young man who had such a good heart, it's very heartbreaking for all of us. And so I'd like to also dedicate this time to Ryan and to the family. Thanks.
So Karen always ministered to people who were victims of violence. Uh, Throughout her years of ministry before that, wherever there was a murder committed in the city of Buffalo, she would had a dove, but on that dove would be the name of the person who died and the date. And we would go to that site where the murder took place, and the family and those of us who were available were gathered for a prayer service. And so that was done for numerous years, and then she would show up at the family's houses and bring them food and continue to support them. So that was one of the parts of her ministries. So that as we prayed together, so just as Karen was that victim of violence, also we pray especially for Ryan and his family. So and praying for peace in our hearts, for peace in our world. And I invite all those present here to join with us. Through the intercession of Sister Karen, Lord, help us to bring peace to the world. Lord, help us to live in forgiveness. Lord, we diligently pray for world peace and unity. Lord, help us to leave peaceprints wherever life may take us. Lord, give us the courage to carry out your will and to live like Sister Karen. In your name we pray. Amen. And so now we will begin with Joan Alberella's book, which was published, This Little Light of Mine, the story of Sister Karen Klimczak. And again, it is done in PowerPoint with Joan Alberella saying all of these words, but I know whenever I hear this, it's like Karen's actually with us.
Hi, I'm a traveler and a storyteller, kind of a traveling storyteller. Would you like to take a journey with me? I'd like to share some of the stories in my life. Oh, don't worry, it's not a long journey, and the stories aren't sad. They all have a joyful, meaningful ending. Always awake to your sacred presence, to your divine, compassionate love. May I see in all that happens to me, in the beautiful and the bad, the mystery of your holy plan. I've spent a lifetime trying to listen to what God wants me to do, trying to find a way to give back some of the love He gave to me. I was always a work in progress, a piece of clay that the potter was still working on. For most of my life, I was an unfinished piece of God's pottery. I was born Teresa Klimczak on October 27, 1943, in Lackawanna, New York, a busy little city that was home to several steel plants and Our Lady of Victory Basilica. My family, and there were 14 of us, belonged to the smaller St. Michael the Archangel Church. We all attended Sunday Mass together, and Sunday dinner was an open house celebration. Friends and extended family knew they could just drop in and join the fun. My parents were so generous. They taught all of us the values of faith, hope, and charity. When I was a teenager, I started working at Our Lady of Victory Infant Home, and when I finished high school, I joined the Franciscan Sisters of St. Joseph. I took the name Karen in honor of my 2-year-old niece. She was so young when she died, That really touched me. I became a teacher, first in Angola, New York, and then for 10 years in Chicopee, Massachusetts, where I got my bachelor's degree at Westfield State College. I also became an expert in open classroom teaching. But was I really doing what God wanted me to do? I guess I really do enjoy teaching, Lord. I pray that I do some good. I love the kids so much. They are precious and beautiful. I'm enjoying them and life itself. I'm grateful for each opportunity you send me. Thanks, Lord. I came back to Buffalo in the late 1970s. Those next 10 years were filled with changes, not just in the world, but in my personal journey too. I was questioning and absorbing all I could. I went down to the potter's house, and there he was, working at the wheel. Whenever the object of clay which he was making turned out badly in his hands, he tried again, making of the clay another object of whatever sort he pleased. This image came back to me many times. I was now teaching at Mount St. Joseph Academy in Buffalo, and I got my master's degree in pastoral studies at Loyola University in Chicago. This was life-changing, because that's where I studied the art and theology of clowning. I suddenly knew. I was a clown for God. 1 Corinthians, God chose those whom the world considers foolish. Bounce the Clown became my alter ego. He helped me spread the word of God. Getting ready was a holy, prayerful time. I would become a new person, free to be who God wanted me to be. I could lift up those who had fallen and tell everyone, you are loved. I was being called by name, and the name was Bounce. It fit me in many ways. I put on my white face and prayed, oh God, do you want me to cover myself so the special person inside me can come out? My lipstick love stick helps me speak kindly to people, and my magic eyebrow pencil helps me see deep down inside others. I'm afraid I'm going to get lost, God, but now I can follow you wherever you lead me. A new person is coming through. Bounce. Be yourself. Be truthful. Oh, others and how we should act toward others. You. Use the gifts God has given you. N. Never hurt anyone. C. Be a caring person, certain of the love. And E. Everyone is special. My sense of social justice was being awakened in a strong, almost mystical way. I was having an experience of God. I was changing, even my lifestyle. Who do people say I am? A teacher? A woman of God? Am I poor in spirit? Do I use my power, possessions, and prestige for others? What good deeds must I do? Am I radically committed to meet the societal hunger and thirst for justice? God's plan for the world is justice. I'm a kind of contemplative. I always need to go off alone to really commune with God. I take long rides on my bike, usually out into the country, or I go camping. The other sisters refer to it as quietly disappearing. Nature is a nourishment for me. My life isn't the conventional life within a religious community. I wanted to join an intentional Christian community. They had been around for some time. They were spiritually based, and the one I joined was led by Father Roy Herberger. We all lived in the rectory of his church, 4 Newman Club students, Sister Mary Pat, myself, and Father Roy. We shared our resources and responsibilities and our joint vision of how we would bring peace and justice into this world. It was a chance for me to experience religious and laity living together, sharing common values. I needed to do a summer service project, so I traveled to Atlanta, Georgia, to work with the surviving children of the Atlanta child killer. Between 1979 and 1981, Wayne Bertram Williams shot, strangled, and stabbed 23 African American children between the ages of 7 and 14. Their bodies were hidden in fields or dumped in rivers. He was finally captured and sentenced to life in prison. But the kids living where the others had disappeared needed consoling. I brought Bounce the Clown with me, and I know I helped some of those scared kids. There were several other summer service projects. I traveled to Providence House in Brooklyn, New York. That summer was actually the beginning of my prison ministry. I worked with the newly released women from the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. They needed shelter, food, and clothing for themselves and their children. They had nowhere to go. They were rejected by their families and had no jobs or opportunities to prepare to re-enter society. Serving these women changed me. It put me on a path I never thought I would travel. I suddenly realized, deep inside, that it was true. Violence could be met head-on with nonviolence. Buffalo had its share of ex-prisoners, mostly men, who had only learned violent ways to respond to life. They needed to be prepared and taught to re-enter society, and I realized that I needed to start a home for these men. I didn't realize what obstacles would stand in my way. Some people, even some sisters in our community, are saying that I shouldn't be doing this, that it's too dangerous, that it's not appropriate. We're not even telling my father, because he would think it's too dangerous living with those guys. But I really feel that this is what God is calling me to do. Do I recognize who I am? 5 years ago, I received a call that transformed my life. I didn't think it was possible for me to start any new venture. I never did it before. I was a teacher. I wasn't aware of any other gifts I could possibly have. I didn't like to talk on the phone. I didn't like to write. I didn't like to ask others for help. I was always so independent. I like a challenge, and I believe in responding to the needs of those who are rejected by others. Deep within me, buried so deeply, I felt the call, but I was so afraid. When I finally got the encouragement I needed from Father Roy, well, I went for it. Oh, me? I'm weak. I'm small. I cry. I'm not experienced. I hurt. I don't have the skills. I can't lead. I have no background. I'll be laughed at. Everyone is saying it's an impossible task. Calm the storm within, Lord. I'm filled with fear, but knowing I'm not alone makes me willing to go through any storm. I spent a lot of time praying and talking to Father Roy about my plans to start a house for guys who come out of prison. I knew I had to get some money and then find a place. I'd already worked out the name. It was an acronym. Acronyms come to me sometimes, like religious symbols. It would be called Hope House, Home of Positive Experience. It wouldn't just be a house. It would be a faith-sharing community where the men would have educational goals and personal goals and extend themselves to others. They would share meals and pray together, and someone would always be there for concerns and encouragement. I knew this work would challenge me to truly live the gospel and make me see how forgiving or loving I could truly be. I was able to get the old Transfiguration Convent, and we opened in 1985, but that building was too big, not at all like a home. We looked for another place, but kept running into walls. Zoning boards made it hard, Neighbors didn't want us around. Father Joe Bissonette, the pastor of St. Bartholomew Church, was always a champion for the poor and oppressed. Our social justice paths crossed many times. And when he heard about my project to set up a halfway house, he told me that if he could ever do something to help, I should just let him know. Father Joe was brutally murdered in his church rectory. He was killed by 2 teens who said they were hungry. He was making them sandwiches, but they wanted money. The rectory was put up for sale after his death, and it was a perfect location for us. But we had to go door to door and convince all the neighbors that they had nothing to fear if we moved in. Joe's sister Joanne was a wonderful advocate for us, and this sacred place became our new home. I could feel Joe's spirit in this place, and I did what I could to keep the memory of his love and devotion alive. I dedicated a prayer room to him and later created a memorial garden in his honor. I called it Peace Park. It has a large monument with his picture on it and the words, "Teach us how to live, God of love. Forgive, forgive." He was an inspiration, and I eventually renamed Hope House Bissonette House. In 1991, I was able to devote all my time to the work of Bissonette House. I lived, worked, and prayed in community at the house. In 15 years, about 1,400 guys came through. They stayed, on average, about 90 days, and we lived, prayed, and played together. They did all the housework, and they had a curfew of 10 o'clock. I woke up from sleep one night and felt compelled to write this letter. Dear brother, I don't know what the circumstances are that will lead you to hurt me or destroy my physical body. No, I don't want it to happen. I would much rather enjoy the beauties of this earth, experience the laughter, the fears and tears of those I love so deeply. God has been so gentle with me, so loving. He has spoiled me so much. Spoiled me with a beautiful family, spoiled me with special friends, spoiled me with a supportive religious community, spoiled me especially with the guys and those associated with Hope House. I am so grateful for all that life has touched me with, the smiles and tears, the gentle rains and the ferocious storms, the sunshine and the dark clouds. I always loved the challenges of life because they brought me so much closer to the Lord, who always held me in his arms. The neighborhood kids used to come to the door. They wanted to know if the guys could go out and play with them on the basketball court. And the guys did. 2 of the kids, Eddie and Michael, were the instigators of everything that was going on in the neighborhood. So one time we had this little flower garden around the tree. All of a sudden, the flowers were snipped off. So those other little kids, the ones who cleaned up the neighborhood for some candy, well, I asked them who was responsible for the flowers being snipped off. They said, "We'll find them for you, sister." Now, these kids were only 4, maybe 5 years old. All of a sudden, they're dragging Eddie and Michael to me. These are big kids they're dragging, and they say, "Sister, Eddie and Michael did it." I ask the bigger boys, and they say, "Yes, sister, we did." So I say, "Eddie and Michael, you better pray that God lets those flowers grow, because we're trying to give glory to God and beautify the neighborhood." So all those kids go up to the tree, kneel down, and fold their hands. They close their eyes and pray that God will make those flowers grow. My God, I didn't mean for them to literally pray. I tried not to laugh. Then they got up and I said, "Let's just hope that God will let the flowers grow back." Guess what I did? I replanted them. I was afraid the flowers wouldn't grow back, so I went and replanted them. Talk about asking for forgiveness in a simple way. 4 months later, we all woke up in the middle of the night because Eddie and Michael's house was on fire. I ran out and was told the 2 boys were rushed to the hospital. By the time I got there, and it was just across the street, they both had died. That story about the simple way they asked for forgiveness became a lesson I tried to teach my guys. I started Hope Hospitality House, where families could stay and visit the inmates. I became very involved with the ECMC hospital ministry, which served the sick and dying prisoners in the lockdown unit. I was also the pastoral assistant at Saints Columba Bridget Church. I even started a teen center staffed by my guys. It was a perfect match, a safe place for teens with access to computers and an opportunity for my guys to develop a sense of responsibility and give back to the community. I got a lot of school children involved in my holiday projects. Each year we tried to get Christmas and Easter packages to over 2,300 prisoners. This was my life coming full circle. I wasn't just concerned about the needs of prisoners and ex-prisoners, but I was being forced to see all the violence that surrounds us and the victims of that violence and the acts of forgiveness. I had studied Gandhi, but what did his teachings mean to me? To become one with my neighbor, to be willing to risk, to serve, really willing, even if it means suffering death. I could now see the devastating effects of interpersonal and street violence. I sponsored a non-denominational prayer service, and every group I could find, from mothers' clubs to gang members, were invited to take a one-year pledge of nonviolence. I began ministering to the victims of violence and their families. We held Christmas parties for children and siblings of homicide victims. In the summer of 2003, I placed a cross in the Peace Park behind Bissonnet House with the names, dates, and ages of all the homicide victims killed in the previous year. It was a sacred place for loved ones to remember the victims. Life was moving faster for me. I created my first lawn sign. Nonviolence begins with me. I had 1,000 signs made. I even had some made in Spanish. We passed them out, and you could see them popping up all over the neighborhood. But I needed to do more. I joined the Peace families who lost loved ones to homicides, and I suggested that at the site of each homicide, we put up a wooden dove with the victim's name, age, and the date of their death, and hold a prayer vigil there to commemorate this life that was lost to violence. Sometimes there were only 2 of us at the vigil, but each sacred spot was marked by a dove. That's when I decided to keep track of the days of peace. I made a 4-foot by 8-foot plywood dove with numbers and days on it, and I put it in our front yard. Then I scanned the paper every morning to see if there had been any homicides. If a murder had occurred, I went out and changed the number on the sign. It was an ongoing public announcement to remind everyone of how few days of peace we really had, and how much work needed to be done. There were other projects and the continuing work with my guys. There were tours of Bissonnet's house and constant fundraising. I'm not complaining, but I knew I was running too fast. I had to talk to God about this many times. I started thinking that I needed something, some sign that I could give to young people. I never forgot my students. It needed to be smaller so they could hold it. So I decided on a cutout dove, but I needed to find the right words to put on it. I decided that as we go through life, we all leave fingerprints. But what if we really need to leave peace prints? Little acts of kindness. I decided that the dove signs should say, I leave peace prints. So I asked Sister Roz, who was a chaplain at Attica, to get the inmates to cut out the doves. She made so many trips back and forth with those cutouts that we started calling her car the Dove-mobile. We finally had 2,000 signs on I was just waiting for an occasion, a special occasion, to remind everyone how much peace is needed. I lived through 62 Good Fridays and Easters, but I never thought that I would have the opportunity to share so intimately in the celebration of my Lord's death and resurrection. God did try to prepare me. He spoke to me several times in my journal and in my quiet moments with him. He prepared and supported me, and I never treated the danger in my work cavalierly. I never ignored any caution I was given. I accepted that this was my ministry, that I was just one more worker, one more voice, one more sister living the message of nonviolence and forgiveness. On Good Friday, April 14th, 2006, I went downtown to join members of the Buffalo Catholic Worker and others for the Stations of the Cross. I usually wore wooden crosses around my neck with the names of all the year's homicide victims. I was asked to bring the crosses again, but this time to pass them around so we all could wear the name of a homicide victim. Between stations, we were talking about the problem of so many unsolved homicides, and I mentioned how the large dove sign in front of the house had already passed 20 days without a killing. That made me nervous because I knew another murder would happen soon. That evening, I participated in the Good Friday service at St. Columba Bridget Church. I got back to the house around 9. I stopped on the 3rd floor to have a few words with Robert, my right-hand man. He asked me how Craig, the new guy, was doing, and I said, I think he's going to be all right. Then I locked up and headed for my room. I didn't know that Craig was in there, and in that moment, that short breath of time, my life changed, and he was the instrument of that change. Violence is a learned response. Taking a life, selling a stolen phone to buy drugs, digging a shallow grave in an old abandoned shed, lying and denying. This is violence that seeks forgiveness. On Easter Monday, after 2 days of friends and family searching the city, Craig finally told police where to find my body. He was arrested, brought to trial, and sentenced to 25 years to life. At the sentencing, my sister, Jean, read the dear brother letter I wrote so many years before. Now, my life has changed, and you, my brother, were the instrument of that change. I forgive you for what you have done, and I will always watch over you, help you in whatever way I can. The most difficult experiences in life can sometimes reap the greatest growth for us. Continue living always mindful of His presence, His love, and His joy as sources of life itself. Then my life will have been worth being changed through you. The special occasion to hand out my new I Leave Peaceprints signs turned out to be my funeral mass at St. Anne's Church. 2,000 of the people attending received these signs and the challenge to live those words. At the end of the service, my sisters Mary and Jean remembered my request and released one white dove. Not everyone thought my work was meaningful. Some thought it was no work for a lady. It was too dangerous, too foolish, and not work for a religious. But I was so blessed to have lived the life I chose. I found myself called to really be with those guys. It made me grow. I saw brokenness in the eyes and hearts of those individuals. And when brokenness is there, we can see God. And God becomes real. He has become more real for me through this ministry than any other experience I have had. I believe I was truly living a religious life as I think a religious life should be lived. It's now time to leave this journey, and I leave you with this prayer. Lord, You are my potter. I am the clay. I have placed myself into your hands and have allowed you to mold me. I recognize how you've changed me, reshaped me, and always use the experiences of the past to help me form a new life, a new shape. Allow me to trust, Lord, that fear may be replaced by a desire to embrace and become whatever you may want me to become. I am clay. Melt me, mold me. I'm yours.
You who dwell in the shelter of the Lord and abide in his shadow for life. Say to the Lord, my refuge, my rock in whom I trust, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. The snare of the fowler will never capture you, and famine will bring you no fear. Under his wings your refuge, his faithfulness your shield. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. You need not fear the terror of the night, or the arrow that flies by day, though thousands fall around you, it shall not come. Raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand.
Okay, this next presentation, I'm not going to do a whole presentation. This next part is a presentation on forgiveness. But what I would just like to show you is actually the Karen movies that are from her. When she started Hope House, we had Channel 7 did an interview with her, and so that you will see her during that time of the interview, so that there are two sections that I will play, and then I will just open that up. Oops. And this is from the DVD that the diocese produced.
And you would not believe the number of times through the years, specifically with men at the house, that she had to forgive them. Men who disappointed her, went back to drugs, back to drinking, betrayed, her trust in them, etc. So forgiveness was a 24/7, kind of, need, and many times for her.
I did see with Father Roy, Craig in jail. And Craig, while we were at the holding center, did offer, numerous times, he did say he was sorry. And I did offer forgiveness. She certainly forgave. I also need to forgive.
Klimczak was a sister of St. Joseph who devoted her life to prison ministry in Buffalo, New York, offering troubled men a second chance to become productive members of society. She was murdered on Good Friday, April 14, 2006, by an ex-offender she had reached out to. Born Teresa Klimczak, she took the name Karen in dedication to her niece, who passed away at the age of 2. Family played a large role in who Sister Karen was and what she became. John and Jen Klimczak raised 12 children, 2 of which, Karen and Jean, entered the convent as Third-Order Franciscans. Karen followed her family's example of worship and outreach.
Sundays was always dedicated to worship of God and family gatherings. No work was done on Sunday. And after we would go to Mass, my dad would do barbecue chicken on Sundays, and whoever came, we just celebrated together. So every Sunday, it was Celebrate Sunday. And very much in Bissonnette, Karen continued, but the meals on the holidays were 1 o'clock. Everybody was invited. So there was always the invitational thing. So that really we got our faith really came from the example of our parents.
Brother and sister weren't titles Sister Karen reserved for family. She looked at everyone as a sibling, embracing all, particularly those in need. Sister Karen spent 13 years as an elementary school teacher at Mount St. Joseph Academy in the city of Buffalo. Though she loved working in education, she always searched for more. Taking advantage of having her summers free, she visited youth camps in Atlanta, Georgia, dressed as a clown. She worked with women prisoners in New York City and always looked for creative ways to spread her message. During time spent in the New York City area, she received a message of her own, calling her to prison ministry.
I know that when I had come back from an experience in New York City, I thought that I wanted to live in a home with ex-offenders, and that's when I discovered that it didn't exist here, and that's why I really wanted to do something for them.
So in 1985, Hope, Home Offering Positive Experiences, opened its doors in a vacant 24-room convent on Sycamore Street in Buffalo, New York. It was at Hope House where Sister Karen began to provide male ex-offenders with a place to live upon their release from prison. Only nonviolent ex-offenders are eligible for Hope House, and no use of drugs or alcohol is allowed while a person resides there. Though prison ministry quickly became her passion, she was also teaching full-time. It wasn't until 1991 she was able to stop teaching and devote herself to Hope House.
Even when we first started the original Hope House at a different location, and I even said to her, well, now, we don't have the money in place, we don't have a lot of things in order for this. Well, don't you trust God? I mean, it'll work out, don't worry. She would just go full steam ahead, and it worked out.
At first, she didn't want to tell my dad that she was living with guys. And so that revelation didn't come until a little bit later on, because there certainly was the concern, because there would be the vulnerability. Karen was aware of that. We were all aware of that. But even with my dad said, "You're doing what?" But then he really respected that decision. And it was also in her relaying that God had called her to this.
After some time at Hope House, the 24-room convent proved to be too big for Sister Karen. She was now on a quest to find a smaller, more intimate residence. Though people knew the importance of the ministry, the reality of a halfway house for ex-convicts in their neighborhood hampered a swift resolution to this situation.
She just got all these refusals. Oh, not here, not those people. And it's interesting because when she went and talked to Father Joe's sister, his sister got up at church one day when Karen was there to talk to the congregation of St. Bartholomew's to ask if they would be open to this possibility. And his sister spoke up and said, "I, for one, think this is what my brother would have wanted." And so with her encouragement, with the people's approval and the pastor at the time, that's why then that was accepted. When no other place would accept this ministry, the only place that would is a place where their previous pastor had been murdered.
Father Joseph Bissonnette was pastor at St. Bartholomew's Roman Catholic Church. He was an advocate for peace and justice in a neighborhood and a world fraught with violence. On the night of February 24th, 1987, two young men came to the door of the rectory at 335 Grider Street. The men spoke of being hungry and without a place to stay. Father Joe invited them into his home and prepared them something to eat. The sandwiches went untouched, while Father Joe was bound, beaten, and stabbed. Sister Karen moved her ministry to Grider Street in 1988. The room in which Father Joe Bissonnette met his fate is now the prayer room at the Bissonnette House.
Father Joe Bissonnette was the person who, at one time before we moved in, lived at this place, in this particular room. This is a place where he was murdered. And actually, it is definitely holy ground, because the place where Father Joe lost his life is where the men of our house come together. Christian, Muslims, Jews, Native Americans, and they pray together. Many miracles have happened through the intercession of Father Joe. Father Joe's picture is shown here on the wall. It was painted by an 18-year-old artist, and it depicts Father Joe doing the various corporal works of mercy that Hope House continues on in his name. We visit the sick. We have men here who have HIV positive, or are HIV positive. Some of them have died, and I have visited them then at their deathbed as they were in the hospital, which is located across the street. When our men come to us, they don't have anything very often, just what they are wearing, so that we provide clothing for them. We celebrate many meals together. It's a standard policy. 1 o'clock is our meal time. So when holiday time comes, we usually have 9 men at the house, but at holiday time sometimes we have 24, 25. And it's a neat way of just getting together and celebrating again. We go to the prisons and visit the men. Very often when we go to visit, it's the first visit they've had in years, sometimes 8, 9 years when they haven't had a single visit. So Hope is a very special place. It's a place where, through the intercession of Father Joe Bissonnette, I'm learning what it means to live the gospel as my men teach me this, as we live in community.
The gospel wasn't something she read or listened to on Sunday at Mass, but they challenged her to live it. You know, how forgiving will you be? How loving will you be? And so these men challenged her.
There's this next section, there's all sorts of stories in regard to forgiveness. But there's just one more section I'd like to play. And So the Dear Brother letter is literally written in stone in the Peace Garden at St. Columba Bridget Parish. And in the Peace Garden, these are quotes from Karen. Scratches my brokenness will mean I'm used, love. Let me risk those love marks. Look at yours, the wounds, they certainly speak of love. Lord, help me to speak your words, to be your heart, to be your smile, to trust as you trust, to cry, to share, to be sensitive, to help me to truly love as you love. Begin again knowing what I know, knowing the hate I will meet for doing it, knowing I will be killed for it. How great will my love have to be? So that the play and all these are her quotes, these are her words. And the cross that is embedded in that monument was the cross that was given to her when she entered the Sisters of St. Joseph. And in that cross, you could, the back opened up, and so that I unscrewed it. And when I opened it up, embedded in the cross were those words, reaching, risking, responding. And so that was her motto, and I didn't want that to be lost, so now it's embedded in stone, literally. It's been so good that we have Karen's journals, and that Joan Albarella, who never knew Karen, and yet she was able to capture her life and be able to have that to write the play about Karen, and also so that those journals and her writings are just so precious. And in a way, Debbie Nayless, what Debbie has done, and even though Debbie didn't know Karen, what Debbie has done in these past 2 years has been to put together an archive of materials, an archive of the books. So they are all arranged chronologically. So that there, how many books did you do?
74.
74, including her journals. But all of in 2 years, literally day and night,
Yeah.
someone who didn't know Karen, but day and night putting all of the things, they're all arranged chronologically, all photographed and digitized, so that so that there is just a great resource of of items that have been done, but they certainly what Karen had lived, how she followed God in the way that she had reached out to others and showed us how to love, what the gospel was about today. Now you have some kind of contact with Karen?
One of my former students, when her father was incarcerated, had an encounter with Sister Karen and very much changed her life. And she was going to come today, but she had to work this morning. But I mean, it was not. Maybe it was the anniversary of Sister's passing that Heather reached out and said, "You know that I knew her," and I'm like, "I never knew that." But definitely touched her life and made an impact on her, just in that one chance meeting.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Jean, can you just talk about that letter from Karen? It was written in the 1990s and she was killed in 2006.
2006.
So she anticipated that this might be her fate.
Oh, yes, yeah, so that there were a number of times in her writings that she alludes that what is she doing is, she has a sense this will cost her life. There are a number of times that there were sharings. Remember, just 3 months before she had died, being in the Bissonnette garden, and her saying, I can't imagine, I have no idea how this can continue. But she wanted to see, in a way, the peace doves and nonviolence, the commitment to nonviolence, to be spread across the country. But she had no idea how that was going to continue. Peaceprints of Western New York has continued her ministry, and they serve over 1,000 ex-offenders every year. And my nephew 4 years ago had given monies to be able to hire a person that was able to write grants. And so that has helped to perpetuate, and Peaceprints of Western New York continues on the ministry that she had started.
I think one of the benefits of etiquette too, she didn't have to wear that awful habit anymore. Oh gosh, I can't imagine putting that on every day.
Yeah, because and so that we had Vatican II, and with Vatican II, we were challenged to go back to our roots, and to examine what was God calling us to, what was our original call, and to follow that.
Growing up, did you have any sense that this might be her mission?
Not in growing, they just got, like with all of us. I mean, you don't know when, when you're growing up, and so that God reveals to you throughout your life, and so that God continued to reveal to her through various experiences, and so forth, and she trusted, she trusted God to follow through.
I would add, that quote on the stone is exactly what Sister was saying. Begin again knowing what I know, knowing the hate I will meet, knowing I will be killed for it, how great will my love. That is right out of her journals. And the Peaceprints ministry today does accept donations. Monetary certainly help. And even they take items that help start some of the men in an apartment or house of their own. in a new place. So they're on Delavan Avenue, I think it is, and keep them in mind when you think of Goodwill and Salvation Army. Keep Peaceprints in mind, because that's right near us, and everything goes to help some people that need it in our own area.
So is the house still called Hope House?
If I get the house was transferred, first it was Hope House, a home of positive experience. I would have to, over the years of being there, and I stayed there, I would have to say that I never, throughout the years that Karen had started the house till when she died, about 20 years, I never heard anything said about what someone did wrong. Never. On another presentation that I have about forgiveness, there's stories galore, about that, but just not able to go into that. So that the whole thing of begin again and just allowing God's grace to just work through people. Now, she prayed every morning with them at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the guys took turns in praying before they went to work and sharing. But of course, there were many instances of. I'll just give the ones. I can't help this one story. So there was of course, all the stealing is always part of the whole thing. And so there was a guy who stole a case of M&Ms that were donated, and so that disappeared. Well, she loved chocolate. She said, you can take away it, you can steal anything from me, but not chocolate. And she kind of knew, so she just down the street there is a store, and so she went down the street in the store. Sure enough, she sees the case of M&Ms there, because there was a little bit something wrong with the packaging, with the whole thing. That's why she got them as a donation. And so then so when she had their house meeting, and at the house meeting she says, that the M&Ms were missing. She says, I just asked, and that is very, very difficult, but whoever is responsible, for taking the M&Ms, if they would admit that, and of course, here you are, and she didn't know which one it was. She sort of had it, I tell you. And then there was the one guy who had taken the M&Ms, said that he says, I was the one who stole them. Can I talk to you? And he was a Muslim, and he had said so they were one-on-one, and tears coming from his eyes. Will you ask your God to forgive me for what I have done? And so that just kind of. But there's many more stories about forgiveness in another section.
I worked for several years inside Attica Prison. I think a few of you know that.
A little louder.
Pardon?
Louder.
A little louder, please.
I worked for several years inside Attica Prison, as a few of you know, and I was an instructor and administrator of what was then a college program inside the prison. And I have a sort of particular connection with this story because one of our students was one of the men, Milton, who had murdered Father Bissonnette. And I can say that in all the time that I was around him, I believe he was changed. He was a diligent student. I know that he regretted what he had done. I know one of the things that I remember saying at some point in some larger context, that none of you, no one is the sum total of whatever behavior put him here. And I feel particularly moved by hearing more about Sister Karen and her relationship with Father Bissonette House, because I'm not sure what else I have to say, but that Karen would have and did forgive Milton. And yeah,
Can I add to that?
please.
There is documentation, in writing, that as Karen was struggling to learn forgiveness, she actually visited both of those young men. So yes,
I know that.
it is
yeah.
true. She
Yeah.
forgave each of them.
And I know Ray,
The brother.
Joe's brother, visited Milton
Yes.
and wrote about it.
Yes.
And I'm virtually certain that was the first visit that Milton had for probably
I think
since
it's
he was
9 years.
incarcerated.
Yeah.
And it would have very much surprised him
Mhm.
to be called for a visit and to then realize who he was meeting with, because the way it works in prison, you don't get, at least in Attica, you don't get advance notice that somebody is coming to visit you, and who that even is.
And with that story with Karen, when she had shared it, that it was during Lent that as she was praying, she was inspired, to go and to visit the young men in prison. And then, so she talking with God, it's like, no, not me, let somebody else do it. She wasn't exactly too, willing to do that. And so she reluctantly does go and meet them. And then she realized as they were coming to sit with her, it's like, he's shaking like a leaf, I'm the one who should be scared.
Yes.
And so then, and it was her meeting with them that she found out the story of Father Joe. There's still more to that, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you forgive? What's the process? Because it's not just something you can flip on, I don't think. It's not almost an act of the will, even. I know that I thought it was Shakespeare, but it isn't. To err is human, but to forgive is divine. For your sake, what kind of process did you have to go through, or have you gone through?
And you're asking that question. There's a lot of emotion tied to that, and it absolutely comes through prayer. There is no other way. There is no other way to come to forgiveness except through prayer and God's grace. It's a gift. Yeah. It's not something that you can give to someone, it's a gift.
Thank you.
I think there were three things that kind of jumped out at me in the presentation. The first was coming back to Buffalo in 1979, and the discernment process happened. And when I first was watching the presentation, I was thinking, well, there was some doubt about what she should be doing, but it was really just a transformation. And it just reminded me that things change all the time, and what we think we're supposed to be doing might be what we want to do rather than what we're supposed to be doing. The second thing was the potter's wheel. It just reminded me that we all get second chances, or third chances, or fourth chances, and that seems to be the way her ministry was, that everyone deserved that, and that everyone was part of that potter's wheel. But the last thing, and I think the thing that struck me the most, was getting dressed up as a clown to spread the word. And there are so many different kinds of people in the world, and we all hear things differently. And we have to be adaptable. And we have to be able to transform our own message to hit all those people. And it seems like that was her maybe greatest gift, was she was just incredibly flexible on how she dealt with individual people. And that's something I think for me, anyway, I need to really keep that in mind.
And in her sharing of in prayer services, so that she would share how she became the clown, and it was through prayer, and so as she's praying with scripture, and when she would do a presentation on becoming the clown, then she would use the symbols of a nail, the symbols of vinegar, with Jesus' death, and so that with the white face, it's dying to self, and so that with that whole thing of becoming a clown, but when she would be doing a presentation, and she had a basket, and with using the scripture how she was called to become a clown, and then like the white face, well, God, I'm halfway gone. Now what happens? And so then it's putting on then the various symbols. Yes, so it's a transformation. And then as a clown then there's all sorts of stories about how she ministered as a clown.
What was it like for you and your siblings and your parents, knowing what she was feeling for the end of her life?
Well, my parents were deceased by that time, and certainly there's feelings across the board. My nephew Sean, my youngest brother's son, his children going to school in New York City. What they had to do was they were asked in high school to do a chapel talk, and my one great nephew and it was a chapel talk about forgiveness, and so like I have a recording, of that, but how he mentions about when Karen was murdered, how everybody was so angry with what had happened and so forth, but then he shares in the chapel talk about the transformation. So there's a lot more stories. Yeah.
I think of the Amish, the school where the shooter came in and killed the Amish kids, how the Amish all forgave what they did. Not too many people can do that. It's quite a gift that God gives you.
And with Karen's journal writing, because the journal little booklet was entitled Precious Moments, and that letter of forgiveness, I did not find that right away. So she died in April, and then in May there was the so he was brought to court. He pled he was innocent. And then we would have to go through a trial. Well, as you find out all sorts of stuff, what happens with the trials. So for the next number of months, it was being called to the courtroom. But what they do is every piece of evidence that they're examining. So it's the whole court case without a jury. Mm-hmm. And so literally we had to go through the trial twice. Mm-hmm. So it was the first thing with all of that kind of evidence. And so then that had started like in June and July. And it was in August that I was at Bisonet House and it was like getting more of her items and everything else, that is when I found that journal. And when I was reading that journal and I came across, because at first with the indictment, and it's like that he pleaded innocent, so it's like, why didn't he just plead guilty? We wouldn't have to go through this. I was frustrated. I was saying, have to go through this trial. And then in August, when I found the Dear Brother letter, then I understood why we had to go through it, because I knew that one person could speak at the sentencing. And I had written to Judge DiTullio if I could read that Dear Brother letter with it was just no introductions. These are Karen's words, and just read through the diary. But if he had pled guilty, there would have been the sentencing. The Dear Brother letter would never have been known. So that it was, as things emerged, it was finding then the Dear Brother letter in August that then I knew, and I had connected with the family that I would read the letter at the trial or at the sentencing. Well, thank you so much. And,
Thank you.
and I'd like to thank Joan Albarella, someone who did not know Karen and yet was able to take her words and literally, be able to present her life. So, and Joan is, is connecting with us, but just so grateful for Joan and she also wrote a biography that was just finished completed now a couple months ago. So now we have a more detailed biography of Karen from Joan. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we end with some kind of song? We got music people here.
Let us build the city of God. May our tears be turned into dancing. For the Lord our love and our life has turned the night into day. That's all I could say.
Thank you.
This little light of mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. That was Karen's. Yeah, that was Karen's favorite. Yes.